first of all, I just want to take this opportunity to tell you guys a little story, okay? It's a true story of two kids, two brothers to be exact. They're separated by about 2 years, but they had very similar interests, okay? And of course, during this time, they grew up during the 80s, right? A magnificent time. For some of you who are a little bit younger, you kind of missed out a little bit, I think. I mean, you got the Reagan era, you got, loud rock and roll, you got really loud fashion and really loud hair. More with the guys, which was really odd. But it was a great time, a booming time. You can see our advances in technology with the cell phone. So, pretty amazing there. But beyond that, it was just a great time to be a kid, especially just waking up to the morning cartoons, coming home, more cartoons, Saturday morning cartoons. That was just what life was for these two little kids. And of course, as a kid, you can't just soak in just the television. You have to also indulge in the merchandising, right? And of course, I'm referring to action figures, toys, however you want to put it. So during this time, these two brothers were, really excited about their television shows. And over time, they kind of zoned in certain shows that they liked, some they didn't like so much. And they had a few favorites, okay? And their parents, as loving and supportive as they are, wanted to nurture their interests in these, very popular cartoons. So when there was an opportunity for the parents to be generous with their kids, they decided to buy both of their sons the same line of toys, right? So there were different phases of different shows that these kids got in terms of toys, So we'll start with brother A, and then we'll refer to brother B, okay? The two brothers. So G.I. Joe, a real American hero. So for brother A, we got Duke, right? I mean, you look at him, just his design. I mean, he's the iconic American hero, right? I mean, his solid stance, broad shoulders, look at that jaw. Look at that smile. I mean, that's a delightful smile, right? I mean, it's almost like he's glowing, I mean, he's the man. He's the complete package, right? So brother A got this G.I. Joe. That's awesome. Now let's talk about the other brother. He still got G.I. Joe. I don't know what you guys are laughing about. He got a G.I. Joe, but this one's slightly different. Let's look into the design a little bit more. He doesn't look that strong. He looks rather unstable, right? He doesn't look comfortable. He actually looks like he's in pain, like somebody just dropped like a bucket of ice water on him, right? And does he look trustworthy? I mean, he's not. You can't tell if he's looking at you or he's looking away. What is he hiding? Why is he hiding? Does he have a face? Or if he doesn't, why doesn't he have a face? Right? So there's a lot of tension there. You start questioning who this guy really is, and it kind of looks like he's being shot in the back. So maybe he's not that friendly, but he's still a G.I. Joe. So this is what brother B got. So once again, that's a great line of merchandise, and the cartoon was amazing. But like any other kid, you move on to the next popular item. Transformers, yes. More than meets the eye, I believe, is the line. And so once again, the parents are very generous. They want to make sure both kids got the same gifts. So let's start with brother A. For those who are not familiar with this line of toys, this is Optimus Prime, leader of the Autobots. Now just start with the name, Optimus Prime. That's like a Roman emperor god or something. The name alone already commands dignity and respect, right? And look at him, he's big and he's strong, and he turns into something practical, right? Something useful. He turns into a big rig with a big truck, or a big trailer, excuse me, right? He can help people move, he can carpool a lot of people. I mean, he's a provider, right? He's gonna have lots of friends, right? So he'll do good in society, all right? That's brother A. Brother B got the equivalent, right? They're the same half, right? The yin and the yang, right? He's the leader of the other group. His name is Megatron. There's Optimus Prime and Megatron. Sounds like a bag of, just not the same there, I think. And if we look at him, what's his public service? What can he offer to society? Right? When he transformed, he's a weapon of destruction, right? So at a party, Optimus Prime transform, people are happy. They're like, ooh, I got a ride home, or you can move my couch. People like him. Megatron, people are running, right? So that's brother B. So at this point, you're probably wondering, what twisted psychological tests are their parents doing? I don't know. They just did. But what was amazing about it, regardless of their intentions or lack thereof, still unknown, it nurtured their experience, their exposure to art, to animation, to entertainment, and design, as you can already tell, right? Just looking at them, you knew who was good and who was maybe not so good, right? So basically, this is my influence as I was growing up, and it never really changed. I was always attracted to toys. There was something about it, the character, the design. There was just an energy and there's just something there. It was hard to really put down. And the best thing was, it didn't stop there. It kind of kept on going. And just so you know, it's only recently that I started connecting these dots. So let's do round 3, okay? So right now, you have brother A, brother B, okay? Almost the two different teams there. So the next popular thing was Masters of the Universe. If you guys are familiar with the two groups, the two opposing groups, guess who got what? This might surprise you. Brother A got him. Big surprise. Guess what the other brother got? Yeah, guess which brother this guy is? Yeah, so there was a theme. Still trying to figure that out. Not getting really any clear answers, to be honest with you. But once again, I didn't see all this back when I was younger. I just saw these amazing characters, these wonderful designs, the delightful adventures that I saw every day, every weekend, that just enlightened me and just made me just be curious about everything around me. And if I had a choice, I can basically just dive into these fantasy worlds, and I'm happy, right? And to me, that was really powerful, and it kind of just kept me going down this creative path. And of course, being young and trying to be creative, I would set up little, stories, little scenarios. I would actually build these magnificent castles out of empty shoe boxes, empty, those little towel things, I don't know what those little rolls or whatever, the toilet rolls and so forth. A lot of toilet paper. We were poor, couldn't afford tape, so a lot of toilet paper there. And that was my castle. And of course, I'll take all these characters. There was these complex plots of betrayal and love and all of that. But ultimately, it was just a big old battle at the end, right? They're just fighting each other. And ultimately, things would break. Arms, limbs, heads. So by the end of the summer, I would just have these random pieces, right? And they had humble finances, and they couldn't just buy me a new toy whenever one was broken. So once again, I had to be creative. So since I couldn't really play with these toys anymore, I took the next step, and I started making up my own stories and my own toys. So the cheapest thing was grabbing a pencil, getting some paper, and I still remember to this day picking up Skeletor, picking up Skeletor and just drawing his anatomy. And for the longest time, I never knew what real anatomy was, because if you look at him, I'm not sure if Andrew is here or not, but he's probably just flipping out. And so this was a big influence on me. And even now, I'm struggling to get proper anatomy, because by default, I'm going back to this guy, right? That's just, I can't help it. But once again, it was just really exciting, and I just wanted to create my own stories, my own toys, and that's eventually when I went to college, started learning more about art, computers. It just led me to the animation industry, and ultimately I became a CG modeler. So now I'm still a kid, still building and creating characters, action figures, and toys. Right? So there we go. Those are the final count sheet, if you will, tally sheet. And so I'm a CG modeler. Without going into too much detail, I like to create, interesting figures. They could be toys. They could be in a neat storyline. Who's to say this art is more for me? And I find as an artist, you have to do your own art. Otherwise, at some point, you're just kind of empty, if you will, right? So I became a CG modeler, have my ups and downs throughout my career, but throughout all this, I was consistent with what I wanted to do, and eventually, and I think this was really meant to be, it led me to Leica, a wonderful, imaginative, just almost also kind of weird studio, if you think about it. A studio that at this time, with all the technology that's out there, they're choosing to do stop motion. That's probably the toughest job, or the most difficult way to make a movie. It really is. But yet, we enjoy it. There are benefits to it. There are challenges, but we feel very fortunate that we're able to do that and share that with the world. And what I would like to do right now is show you some of what we've done in the past 10 years. And I've been lucky enough to be there all those 10 years, and with every project, I still get excited. It seems like we're getting bigger and better, and it's just amazing to be with those talented groups of people. So I'd like to share that with you. Later on, I would like to also show you more of the behind the scenes, the breakdown of these shots. Most of the stuff you guys have already seen, but I want to show you, things that normally the public can't see, especially for those of you who are interested in the workings of stop motion, CG, and so forth. Okay. Let's see here. All right, almost there. We're building momentum.
Looking back,
There we go.
I guess you could say the odds have never really been tilted in our favor.
Thanks for your patience.
Conventional wisdom says this. Looking back, I guess you could say the odds have never really been tilted in our favor. Conventional wisdom says this wouldn't and shouldn't work.
Awesome!
But here we are. In our 10 years, we've learned that not only are we filmmakers, we're engineers, city planners, electricians, and adventurers. We are a passionate group of artists who believe that the smallest details help tell the bigger story. Looking forward, we continue to evolve.
Whatever your quest, it is now my quest too.
Growing our studio, our art, our craft, our technology, and our ambition.
I can't believe you did this!
A lot has happened in 10 years, but we're really just scratching the surface. As our stories continue to expand, we'll take them to bigger, bolder, and more surprising heights. For a decade, we've been doing what some might call mad, what some might call magic. We call it Leica.
You're just in time for supper, dear.
Can't you be like other kids your age?
Oh, baby.
This is my moment!
Oh, Hi. Thank you. So this is where it gets fun. So once again, everything starts from an approved concept. As you can see, we have a pretty large village scene. You know, a lot of environments, buildings, characters. And in terms of stop motion, that's just a lot of work. It's a very expensive, time-consuming process, and to do a large scene like that, it's basically not, it's not possible. So we incorporate digital puppets. We start with doing a lot of research, right? We have a fantastic designer by the name of Deborah Cook. She goes in and does weeks and months of research and trying to make sure that each character is, has the integrity of what they want for the movie. So, I think we even got some dancers in the studio and actually did some motion capture to get the Oban dance correct. And here's the initial design for the character. And a lot of times with Leica, since it is deeply rooted in traditional ways of working, a lot of times our characters are initially sculpted in clay. Some of our sculptors use, your typical super sculpey. That's pretty popular. And then some of the other brands out there. Basically, they can use whatever they want as long as they're comfortable with the medium. And based on these designs and these aesthetics and basically the style of the movie, we would actually go in and create digital versions of these. Sometimes we're doing an exact match of these puppets. Other times we're making variations, because if you're building a crowd system, you can't have 20 or 40 guys and girls looking the same. So we have to vary it. Not too much so that they stand out, but just enough that we do have a selection. And as you can see here, we have the real practical puppet on the right, and then our digital on the left right there. We also do quite a bit of research in terms of actually making these puppets functional. Not only can they, should they be able to move properly, but then their clothing has to also match their body movements. And with stop motion, everything is a key pose. You know, everything has to hold its shape and its weight in air, basically. And there are rigs for that. And for the digital effects, we have to make sure that we match these movements. Regardless of it's a limiting restriction, we still have to match that in 3D. Obviously, we can do quite a bit more in CG, but we want to make sure that the look and the feel of the movie is consistent. And once again, it is a stop-motion movie, so even though we're doing high-tech wizardry on is that a real word? On the computer, we still want to make sure that it matches the puppet. So, I'll fly through there. And as you can see here, these little fractal designs is there on purpose so that it actually folds and moves in a certain direction. And also these magnets actually hold the fabric and the drapes and the clothing in place so that it doesn't move between shots. And here's a CG version of some of this fractal tessellated wrinkles. And at our studio, we do use a combination of, like I said, traditional and modern tools. So we do have a lot of traditional animation with the puppet, but we also incorporate, as you can see here, digital animation combined with actual motion capture also. And here's a more complete version of the dance. And some of this stuff, I think I'm just going to just briefly just kind of fly through. Once again, a lot of research into texturing and the shading. Here's a comparison with the hair. Hair is also very important, so we're trying to make sure our digital hair matches our practical. And here's the fully shaded and rendered digital puppet. Now, one thing I would like to point out in terms of the movies that we make at Leica, they are practical. Pretty much every shot is practical, but also every shot is also a digital shot. There is always some form of editing to either clean the seam lines for the faces, to remove the rigs, to add extra set extensions, add in digital characters. It's a very, very well-organized hybrid of both crafts. I got a few more of these guys. Oh, there's a lot. Okay, we'll move on. There we go. Like any visual effects house, my department is a visual effects house just for the studio, and basically our goal is to make our digital assets, regardless if it's a prop or an environment or characters, to match with the actual practical elements. And hopefully you guys don't notice the difference. Now, not to ruin it for anybody, but a general rule is if you see more than 4 or 6 characters in a scene, some of them aren't really there. So, but we do that very nice dance going back and forth with the practical and the digital, and I think it's a lot of fun, and hopefully as a viewer, you won't really be distracted when you see this. Okay. I have a lot of these, so I'm going to have to move on. And this is the lineup for our characters. As you can see, these are all practical puppets. There's a limitation to how many puppets we can build for the movie. Here's a nice little illustration how we're able to expand the population by integrating digital characters with our cast. All right. And this will be a nice, some of you have already seen this, so, shh. But how many digital characters do you guys see on screen? Anybody want to risk it? Is that 8? Okay, ready? 1. So I kind of lied about the 4 or 6 characters. I keep you guys on your toes. Set me up, man. I did. Okay, one more. This is second chance here. How many real puppets are there? 3? Oh, that was close. So we got a kick out of that, So sometimes I can't tell myself. Sometimes I can. It's kind of sad. But so a lot of times, in terms of our process for getting a digital character, everything pretty much starts practically. Okay, you get the 2D concept. Once that's approved, then we have somebody actually go in and actually sculpt the maquette. And this is just an example of one of those maquettes. I believe this is an early version of Shoe. As you notice, it's a bit asymmetrical. They want to make sure that there's character in these sculpts. So, in terms of CG work, that's tough to use that as a base. So there's a lot of work just to go in and make it usable. So I would like to go into ZBrush real quick and give you an idea of our process in treating scanned data. Because we balance a lot of just scanned data and then also a lot of just digital work that we create on the computer without using the scan, okay? And the reason I have these on here is just to give you the variations and the challenges that we have, the asymmetry, the pose. If we look at YB here, this is an early version of the sculpt. One eye is much bigger than the other. There's a very bizarre deformation to his head. The mouth is very asymmetrical, and with his wide expression, it's like, where would the neutral mouth be? Right? So you have to kind of flatten everything, balance everything out. So there's some technical challenges to this. So let me go ahead and open up a few files for you. Now, I will apologize in advance for some of you who may be looking for some really cool RP videos. Sadly, you will not see that today. I think there's already a lot out there online. So what I would like to do is just show you more of what you haven't seen. Here we are. So this is an example. Let me see if I can go ahead and change some of this up. Hopefully make that a little bit easier for you guys to see there. So what we have here is a scan of, what is this? Is he fish? Okay. There's a few subtools in here. Now, one thing that I've been doing, which I don't know if is common or not, but my top subtool I typically just throw in like a star. I'm not sure if anybody does this, but the reason I have that is whenever you save a file, the subtool always gets renamed. And I find that really annoying. So I just end up putting a little temp piece of geometry there so that I don't have to worry about renaming that particular asset again, right? Because if this head was on the top subtool, when you rename it, whatever name is gone because now it's the name of your file. So little things like that is pretty annoying for me, so that's why I have that there, okay? So if we take a look at this here, and actually, what I currently have right now is a custom layout, and what I'm going to do is actually reset this for some of you who are not familiar with the layout. I'm going to go back to the default, and hopefully that should help you out quite a bit so you can kind of know where I'm going with some of these files, okay? So as you can see here, this is a scan of the head, okay? Notice there's a lot of detail there. Also notice how it's slightly deformed. One side is a little bit bigger, it's a little bit more tilted, there's more weight here and there. As a CG modeler, this, and also as a rigger, this is kind of, difficult to use in animation, right? Ideally, you want everything symmetrical. So one of the things we do once we have scanned data is to go in and clean it up and actually make it symmetrical, okay? So what I have here as a second subtool is the retopologize character, okay? Now what I've done is I retopologized it. I made sure that it was symmetrical, but I also matched that default asymmetrical shape because that was what was approved. That's what the director wanted. So you don't want to lose that information. Otherwise, the whole process of scanning is, kind of wasted there, right? So you want to make sure you capture all of that detail, okay? But of course, it being asymmetrical in the CG world, that's, not that usable. Ideally, what you want is this guy, right? Nice and symmetrical, nice and clean. Okay? So to go from here to there takes a few little steps. And what I would like to show you is how I would actually go about in doing this. Okay? So here's my asymmetrical low-res mesh. Notice the line's not perfectly straight. We have uneven areas over here. So what I would typically do is make sure that ZBrush knows where the center seam is, and then average the two sides. And that will be my starting point, okay? So I'll come into here, deformation. A lot of the techniques that I use are pretty common. Maybe the combination might be slightly different. So by default, if I don't have anything masked at all, I can click on Smart Resim, and it should, in theory, average both sides out for me, okay? That did not work. Notice we're having problems right there. It can't find the symmetry. It doesn't know where the actual seam is. And, it happens. You're always going to run into obstacles like this. So good thing that ZBrush has a lot of options for you, Like in ZBrush, there's more than one way to skin a cat, if you will. So since we're running into symmetry problems, then we can simply come up to transform, go to our symmetry, okay? We know that the symmetry is broken here, so we can actually use posable symmetry. And ZBrush, as you can see here, has found the symmetry, and it knows where this line is, okay? So now we can go back to our deformation and do the smart resim again. And notice it's getting a little close to where we want, right? There is a bit of a shift, but if you look at both sides, it's matching perfectly, right? It's almost ideal for a CG model right now, but we do have this weird issue here. Once again, you're always going to run into these problems, so a lot of of your time might be just troubleshooting this stuff, especially if you're doing something that most people don't do, like processing scan data, but keeping a lot of the symmetry detail. And in this situation, I believe the reason why we're getting that shift, if I just want to do that one more time so you can kind of see what's going on here, it seems everything is symmetrical except for this one line here. So what I think the problem is it could be that my object, if I turn on the floor, where is it? It's hard to see right now, but basically this head is not exactly centered at the origin, right? And so that's why it's being shifted over. And I was hoping I can show you the little crosshairs. Let me see if I can turn.
Go to draw.
Go to draw, okay.
This is for all of you. Go to modifier.
Modifier,
Keep going.
up, down.
Down.
There it is, okay.
See that frame will pass and turn it all the way up?
There we go, okay.
Go up, and then go down as far as its axis.
Down.
There.
Up.
That'll make the axis bigger.
There you go. Can we see that? Awesome. Look at that. You can always learn something new, especially from Paul. So you can see here where the center of that origin is and how our head is slightly to one side. So what we can do then, I'm just going to turn off my symmetry by turning X, go back to my transpose. The cheat is to hold down the Alt and then just click on the mouse and just kind of move that over and kind of figure out roughly where that center would be. So I'm kind of averaging that, just kind of eyeballing it just to move this along. So now, since I've corrected his orientation here in terms of our global, our world axis, if you will, I can just hit on Resim, and it should be a little bit closer. You can see here that we're actually getting that in the center. So then what I do is normally, if I can get one or two areas that are lining up, then it's much easier now to go in and I can kind of start smoothing this area, right? So that in itself will kind of start matching things out. And because most of this is already symmetrical, once I've averaged this out, then I can just grab all those edge loops and just collapse it on 0. And now I'll have a perfect mirror of that mesh. Might take a little time, but sometimes you have to do a little dance between Maya and ZBrush sometimes. And so with that approach, that's how I'm able to get a cleaner version, a symmetrical version of this guy, okay? And of course, what's great about this is because we have a low res and because the lower cleaner topology is matching the sculpt, then we're able to actually go in and transfer all of that detail. So the detail that we had that was asymmetrical over here, we're able to keep all of that in a symmetrical pose, right? And now we can actually go back and forth depending on what's needed. And what's great about this, especially for us who are, for our team who are working on populating the entire city with these box trolls, now we have a neutral box troll, and so we can start deviating the designs, and because the details are there, all that detail would transfer with each morph, if you will, each blend shape of this character, which once again will save us a lot of work, and we just get all this free information without much work at all. Does that make sense? Okay. So we have that, okay? Now I'm going to bring up another example similar to what I'm doing there, because once again, a lot of what we do is just matching the practical elements. And that's the key, basically, the key to our movies is that you don't know what's digital and what's practical, and hopefully everything looks practical, because that's the goal. So we always want to make sure we're using anything that was made across the street, by hand, and we match it exactly. Sometimes we even match the flaws that are there. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference, so we just match everything. And once again, some of you are just working, on animated shows, so using scans might not apply, but I do know that some of you are actually in the traditional industries, and scan information will be, processing scan information will be very valuable. And this is a situation here where we have a leg. This is one of the box trolls' legs, and as you can see, there are straps on the leg, but it was scanned as one piece. Right? So there's no separation between the fabric, the wrapping, and the leg itself. And once again, as digital artists in the VFX department, I need to be able to actually separate that so that we can actually retopologize it correctly, and then also be able to add the proper shaders to these straps and not have that applied to the leg there. So once again, it's a very similar process where we'll go in and clean the scan as much as possible using the decimation master in the Z plugin is really helpful to optimize your mesh so that's easier to use. And then we'll go in and retopologize the mesh. And in this example here, you can see that I went in and just retopologized those straps. Once I have those straps, then I can just reproject all that over again. And what you see here, this is still the scan data, but using the polygroups, I'm able to isolate just those straps. And so I can just isolate what I'm actually projecting back over to my new mesh that has the cleaner, topology. But then I can obviously also make sure that it has UVs and start that process there, right? Now sometimes, as you're projecting the detail over, you will run into situations like this. Regardless if you're doing, if you're processing scan data or not, if you're projecting one surface to another surface, you will run into a situation where there will be some odd blends, kind of like this right here. See that? This area right here looks almost seamless as one piece. That's because that's the scan data. And right now this mesh is trying to capture every detail from that scan data. And that's why it's really important to go in and make sure you clean that first. Otherwise, now I have to go back in here and manually clean that myself, right? So it's one of those where it's like either you do the work in the, up front or you do it near the back end. So it still works. I would recommend just doing it at the very beginning, just get that out of the way so that you can actually get something a little bit cleaner like this. Sometimes it's a bit subtle, but you can see that we actually have separation where those different fabrics or the cloth overlap. And depending on the shot and the lighting, that can either look really nice or where it will pop and have some separation, or it'll feel like it's just one sock that's been slightly ripped in certain areas, okay? So we'll have something like that. And once again, same thing with the leg. The scan leg was actually covered up by these straps. And so what I did was, or we did, we have a team of 2 modelers in my department for the entire studio. So, no, actually I lied. There's 2.5. There's me, there's Steve Agrello, I think I'm butchering his last name. He's the other full-time modeler, and then we have a very talented artist by the name of Holly Webster, and she does help us from time to time. So we have like 2.5 CG modelers. Not to brag, I know, it's kind of, so. All right, so here we went in, we topologized, and then transferred the detail over. And once again, because ZBrush is such an amazing sculpting application, I can just quickly go in and just fill in the gaps myself using the visual language that's already been established by the sculptor that was approved by the director. So here, I don't have to second guess what something should look like. I have to just match what's there. And here, as you can see, once again, our movies are, depending on the style, there's some really strange visual language in here in terms of like the shapes and the planes and so forth. And sometimes it looks like a mistake, sometimes it's on purpose. Unfortunately, in our department, we can't always question that, so we just match it exactly. This way, if they're, angry about it, we can just blame the sculptor, which is, the better route, I think, than the director coming after us. So that's what we would do in terms of just processing data. Now, sometimes we'll have the luxury of, not necessarily the luxury, but sometimes production don't have the luxury of sculpting everything, and we need a horde of characters. Then that's when we would simply just get 2D designs, and based on the scan sculpts that we have, we'll use that visual language to populate other variations of the same character. And then we don't have to sculpt it traditionally. We can just sculpt that digitally in ZBrush. Okay? So I want to illustrate non-character stuff, because obviously the movies that we make, it's very rich, it's very lush. So there's a lot of details on our characters, but in the background, it should look and feel like it's an existing place somewhere, and that these puppets have a home, and so it should be a consistent level of detail and aesthetics. And most of this is actually built by hand, but depending on what's needed, we would actually go in and make digital assets and help out some of the landscaping and the scenes department. And as you can see there, some of those items that you saw that looked very practical was actually made in ZBrush. Right? A lot of times, yes, they can probably do this by hand, but because we are working on a miniature scale, making little toys for little puppets is rather difficult. And so with 3D printing and ZBrush, it's much easier to do it on the computer. And that's why we have some of this origami, the dried fish, and the weapon for the sisters up there. And I'm always stressing that we are trying to balance the traditional with the digital, and it's not because we want to. Basically, we're just using whatever is available to get the job done. And one example that I like to show when I do the tours at Leica is this tree. Now, for some of you who have seen Coraline, there's an orchard of these trees in the movie where Coraline is running down that's like a little hill, I believe, and we just have these trees everywhere. Now, at a glance, they're very colorful, they're very expressive, and they're very unique, but they look like trees, like little snow blossoms, if you will. But if you take a closer look, it's actually just paper, wire, glue, and popcorn, right? So we'll have these like $200,000 3D printers, but then we'll just buy a bag of microwavable popcorn from Sack and Save, and we'll throw that in the movie. Once again, whatever gets the job done. And at Leica, we spare no expense in this case. So, yeah. All righty. So, don't eat the set. Yeah, don't eat it. I've been tempted though. I've been tempted. And so we are running low on time, so as of now, if you guys have any questions, I would love to answer them. Otherwise, I'll just find more stuff to show you. Yes, sir. Oh, sorry.
Microphone.
I was just wondering, do you topologize in Maya or in ZBrush?
The answer is yes. Once again, like my example of the tree, we have 3D printers that can make tiny little origami toys, and then we'll get some popcorn and we'll just paint that. So whatever is available, whatever gets the job done when it comes down to it. And with ZBrush, you know, sometimes I'm using ZBrush for the entire character or the entire prop or set element. Other times I'm starting in Maya and I'm jumping back and forth. Normally, if I'm working on a character, I'm jumping back and forth, you know, because it's just easier to move points and manipulate the form in ZBrush. There are some decent tools in Maya, but it's just easier and faster and just honestly more fun in ZBrush. So.
You got another question right here?
Yes.
Yeah, since you're showing some environment stuff, do you guys do any set extensions, or is it all handcrafted, 3D printed?
We do set extensions, and actually that was one of the clips that I've been looking for, and it's just been really tricky because we're having some technical issues here. But if you want to give me a chance, let me see if I can actually play some of these for you. Actually, let me make sure that it's not a whatchamacallit, like a.
Do you want to take an online question while you're looking for that?
Yeah. Hi, online people.
When is the best time to use Decimation Master in your opinion? They're still unclear when is the best use for that. When's the best time to use Decimation Master?
The best time to use Decimation Master is when you need it.
When you need it online.
Seriously, I mean, it just depends on the user and what is needed. Because, for example, if one person has been using ZBrush for years, they can probably handle a denser mesh than somebody who just started last week, right? So I would say, you know, if it's too dense for you, then you would decimate. If you can't manipulate the forms freely and you're not be able to actually control the shapes, or there's a lag, then it's probably too dense. Then you should decimate. Or if you're doing 3D printing, right? Depending on the printers that you have, depending on the software, there's a cap on how dense the mesh can be. So if you know the limits of the printer and the software, then you are forced to decimate to actually be able to print that shape. So.
Any other questions out there on the floor? I see one. See a hand. Let me get her first. I saw her first. Coming. Here you go.
Actually, I'll try that one.
This is a kind of a bit of a twofold question.
Okay.
I noticed that a lot of the faceplates for the main characters get 3D printed. I noticed that a lot of the faceplates for the characters, for the main characters, like in Kubo, got 3D printed. Are those keyed in ZBrush? And if so, are they like attached with magnets or something?
Yes. Once again, it's yes for everything. Once again, I think for us, and I think in general in any production, you use whatever tools that you're familiar with that will get the job done. And ZBrush is a very flexible, powerful tool, and it's based on the user. You know, it can pretty much do anything you want, but you have to tell it what you need. And depending on what you need, sometimes maybe you're working in Maya for a little bit, then sometimes you're going into Max and you're jumping back and forth. Now, what I can tell you is, by default, all the hero characters that you see in our movies, they're always sculpted. Chances are it's by the same guy, Kent Milton. He's amazing. I hate him, right? He's getting all the cool work, and I'm getting, you know, background characters. It's okay. It's okay. I'm not bitter. You know.
Take a moment. Take a moment.
I'm gonna breathe a little
All right,
bit.
there you go.
But so we'll have this, the sculpt. It will be scanned. The scan technology is getting better, but it's not always perfect. It's not always clean, and like I showed you before, it's not always perfectly symmetrical, right? So we have to go in and process that. And the first thing you do is, you know, if you have scanned information, you're taking it into ZBrush. By default, there's no other option. You're taking it to ZBrush because it can handle that much data. It can, you know, knock down a lot of the points so that it's more usable, and then you can quickly deform and clean up and straighten out the shapes that you want there. And then from there, you can choose to retopple in Maya if you want. But a lot of times, it's surprising how much work you can actually get done just within ZBrush. I hope that answered your question. Okay, awesome.
One more question right here.
I know it's kind of an obtuse question and it varies from scene to scene, but on average, how long do you think it takes you to shoot 60 seconds of film?
60 seconds?
Yeah.
I think on a good, for a solid animator, I think a good week is from 4 to 6 seconds. Some of you guys are good at math. Yeah, you're not getting it wrong, yeah. So I say 4 seconds a week is pretty good. Sometimes if you're a rock star, maybe 6 or 7. It's called stop motion. Sorry. It's amazing, but it is, like I said, it's a very painful, it's a really bad way to make a movie. It really is. I just got fired right there. But we all know that. We all know that. And once again, there's a richness and there's a tactile feeling for that. And I think that shows in our movies. You know, the blood, sweat, and tears, it's there. It's real. It's not digital. Okay. Oh, let me show you something really cool. This gentleman was asking a question about sets and so forth. I'm still looking for it, but I just found something really cool that combines a little bit of all the different mediums. And before I click on this, I just want to say that, once again, you know, many stages, 2D, there was a clay sculpt, it was scanned. Tony Chin, a very amazing digital artist, sculpted it a little bit. Then, because this thing is so big, it had to be milled out in foam, and then another set of artists will go in and actually add more detail on this. I believe Ben worked on this, so he's going to add more stuff, and then we have another team of, you know, armaturists and technicians, and it's a big mess. So enjoy. So as you can see there, we only built the basic elements that was needed for the shot. Because the beetle is already a large character, this giant skeleton, that's just the hand. So if you can imagine, you know, how big he'll be if he stood up, there's no way we can actually build the entire surroundings for that. So what we did was we actually added the walls and the roof of this environment digitally. And this was actually, yeah, I think Steve did a lot of the sculpting, if not all the sculpting in ZBrush for those columns and all the bones that are in there. Sorry for technical difficulties, guys, but thank you for being patient. And
that's it, Chris Tran from Leica.
Okay.